Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, they call America the land of the free and home of the brave. But during the pandemic, if you refuse to take a vaccine or a booster, you automatically get fucking cancelled, an enemy of the state, wherein they call you an anti-vaxxer and say that you are a threat against society. We think that the way these public health officials frame particular narratives, even if they have good intention, is exactly what limits people's ability and capacity to truly make an informed decision, precisely because of the unknown, and that these very people operating on those unknowns with things that they can actually measure and call science is exactly what limits our ability to truly make an informed decision and actually harms people as a consequence of such. What is my extension? I'm going to talk to you about how on our side we get a better investigative process and capacity to deal with public health crises when I ground it in a timeline before, during, and after. But before that, let me respond to a couple of things that the previous speaker had mentioned. Firstly, they talked about how these particular decisions were made by politicians and not Fauci. I call bullshit because on both sides, of course, we lead through the executive branch. We craft laws through the Congress and Senate. We execute through the president and their office. We arbitrate through judiciary. But we have to understand the sphere of influence in terms of how these technocrats were able to manipulate these offices to be able to make such important decisions, to the point that a lot of these things were curtailed and rushed in the name of public health and safety. So we think on their side, what actually happens is that a lot of those things get curtailed, and as a consequence, you have a host of harms. A, you have rushed clinical trials for drugs and vaccines at a point in which, not even saying they have collusion to Big Pharma, because I recognize that, yeah, sure, politicians may be better than them too, but you actually force people to take shit that you're unsure of it being working. B, the economy just gets fucked at a point in which they say that we have to be isolationist, we have to stay home, we shouldn't trade, China is the enemy, Sinovac is good, AstraZeneca and Moderna is good, because these things are what? Headquartered in corporate America, and these very people might not have direct stake, but are from the country that perpetuates it. That's why you had this whole Sputnik, Sinovac bullshit at a point in which we had to wait much, much longer for America to get their white vaccine. But at the same time, we were shitting on China for saying, nasa laman yan, tubig lang, hindi yan gagana. These all came from these particular officials who were also circle jerking and saber rattling in terms of them being able to say, I'm better, you're not. These games also exist within these particular doctors. We think the second thing that they bring us is this idea of they can be both good and bad. We think that, okay, we take that out of the debate, because if both sides they're bad, then we don't want to argue there. But I'll be comparative, right? Let's talk about both of them being good. If these particular public health officials were good and malevolent, that's what my partner said, which wasn't fully responded to. The fact that these people are motivated by good intention is exactly what leads them to jump and rush into conclusions, because they're so concerned about being able to take care of public health and safety. Because let's answer, what is the metric in terms of success? Less people dying, more people getting jabbed. When are we able to open the economy again? And that's another response to what Hesaya mentioned. Meaning, the point in which it's done, you can say that, yeah, these people did a good job, but there's no way to be able to hold them accountable at the point in which where bad things happen. So, when you curtail the democratic process, you now leave the politicians as the very scapegoat of Fauci, hence why Biden had to absolve the motherfucker, and why Trump and his administration now is cracking down so hard on what happened during that, because they want to be able to be prepared with what happens moving forward. Third and most importantly, this whole it's temporary thing, they can be appointed and stuff. That's exactly where not just it undermines the democratic process, but on the comparative, politicians who are there literally for longer and have most to lose are going to be able to feel the aftermath and effects of the American and world populace. Hence, it becomes their prerogative. Sure, decisions might take a bit longer, but at least they're in terms of being able to more sure. Because what Jaren mentions is that, politicians analysis paralysis. But on their side, because they're motivated to help particular people, they want to get the drugs in you to be able to help you, even if they're not so sure because they're so pressured. There's no discussion at all. And that's exactly what happens wherein people are coerced to be able to take these particular things that they're not entirely sure what the side effects could be. And you have the state snowballing into this actual capacity and saying, if you don't listen to them, you bad, you is enemy. Now let's take a look at the timeline of how it's actually being measured. In terms of what happens pre-pandemic, politicians who are actually there are able to actually understand how they can deal with those realities. And during the pandemic, they're able to also have these particular discussions because they also have their particular fields and specialization. Yeah, go for it.
Discussions happen on either side of the house, obviously. The difference between our side and your side is just that these public health officials don't care about all of that politicking that you talk about that is a hamper to saving lives on op.
Yeah, on both sides there's politicking, but on our side we're able to ask the doctor and then make that decision, as opposed to on your side. I doubt the Fauci, etc. are going to be like, hey, Governor, Mayor, what do you think about this? How will this affect your fiscal budget? So, the spheres of influence in terms of what they do consider is just less when you have these doctors being able to deal with it, precisely because they're so worried, and the metric in terms of them looking at it is so short term, as opposed to the comparative, wherein, we also look at short term, but we're also able to take into account the medium and long term effects of what might particularly happen. Because we're here as America and the world to be able to get through this, but we have to grapple with the realities, being able to solve unemployment, inflation, all this war that we caused with China, and all of those particular things, which we think are exclusively under the prerogative of politicians and absent the lens of particular doctors looking at it, precisely because they're benevolent, precisely because they're specialized, precisely because they're worried. And we think on the comparative, things might take a bit longer, there might be more uncertainty, but at least we're able to gravitate towards more sure decisions. We are very proud to stand on side opposition.